I'd like to welcome today's guest to the podcast, which is Anna Marie from AMT Events. Anna Marie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes, so thank you very much. My name is Anna Marie Trzebinski and I launched my events company in 2020. Just so happened to be when I was 3 months pregnant, which everyone said I was mad about at the time. 5 years on, here I am, very open to talking about the journey of the business and the challenges, the peaks. And yes, we're loving being 5 years old. Historically, we haven't always celebrated, and I wanted to kind of nip that in the bud and celebrate what we've been doing for a change.
So 5 years is a bit of a historic landmark for a lot of businesses. The statistics say, and I'm not one to be ruled by statistics, but there's an awful lot of businesses that never make 5 years. They struggle with cash flow problems, the startups burn out and things like that. And you've had quite a challenging journey, especially starting that through a very difficult time in mankind's history, not just our country's history. Yeah. So tell me, what made you decide to start your own business just around the time that COVID was hitting?
Realistically, it wasn't something that all of a sudden hit me overnight as a new idea. I had been thinking about it for quite a long time, but because of the circumstances, I think with COVID, the fact that there were no events at the time, it didn't come as an obvious, natural decision when I was made redundant. So
your friends and family must have thought you're crazy. We're literally having no events and you're going to start an events business.
My friends and my family know me, so I think there wasn't a step up of craziness. Yeah. But they really supported me. I think a lot of them know that events are in the grain of my blood. Yeah. I've just, I was always super ambitious and going through my 20s, coming up from fashion, which were my roots, styling. I went through a lot of processes and stages to really find my niche, and through that kind of styling and design experience, I ended up in fashion events and consequently corporate events. I grabbed an opportunity with both hands when it came along. So I wasn't going to give it up easy at any point. And actually, I think I saw COVID as an opportunity, time I never had before to be able to really think about the brand, the direction, and get everything prepared before we actually did our first client event. So
because the client events go a broad spectrum. You talk about fashion to one extent, which is high adrenaline, high egos, very glitzy, glamorous events, to some corporate events that can be the most mundane and day to day for their industry. But you've got to make that exciting and adventurous and a bit of a thrill to attend.
Yeah, sure.
I know that if we go back to the beginning of your CV, there was bits of banking, and you did some work for some of the diabetic charities and things like that. And they're quite serious subjects. How do you put a element of creativity or flair into that?
So for me, the corporate factor has never been boring because I've always looked at their challenges, and that makes me think in a creative way. So I think it's about education around the word creative, because it's not always obvious and it's not always aesthetic, but it's how things have been done and then looking at how they can be done, or what the user or the guest really wants to gain out of that experience. So I would say my personal journey through production and events and working with clients is all about the way my brain works. And I've always tried, it's been a non-negotiable to keep the creativity. When I found myself kind of in a corporate role where I really realised, do you know what, this has been an amazing experience. I've learned a lot. I've soaked up all the training because I was the yes girl. Yeah. I signed up to everything. But I literally hit a wall one day where I just was staring at a wall and going, what am I doing? And that's when I made the change from corporate internal to brand agency. And it was actually there I felt that I was able to kind of get that balance and put my stamp on working with corporates that have, such great opportunities to do such a different array of events, which is, why I love to work with corporates. But being able to really come in from a different angle and say, actually, we have the time to work on these elements for you, which I never did when I was in internal corporate, and then present those options. And from the fashion background, I would say I just think slightly differently, because I think around the design factor, my training, the very long late nights that I'd done, and the people that I worked with, and applying those methods, those strategies, obviously always evolving as well. It brings a different element and a different solution to various industries that I work with. And there was one industry in sports that came to me, and I did say, you know, I've never done sports before. Why are you coming to me? With all respect, I'd love to work with you, but I don't want to lead you up the garden path. I want you to make sure that you're happy at the end of it. And they just said, we've done all the sports agencies. We just want something different. Yeah. And we have a common connection that really recommended the way that you work, and I was like, well, that's why you should come to me. And that's where we went, and that was our biggest international event to date so far. So it was
a feather in the cap at the end of it.
Exactly.
Delivered exactly what they needed. Do you find there's a lot of organisations that are set in their ways? I know that I worked as a marketing director of a photographic trade association for a while, and at one of our annual awards evenings, you can imagine the kind of 60 and 70-year-old grey-haired fellows of the industry, and we say, well, we just don't want anything that's boring. So we, unbeknown to everybody, the 400 odd guests, we organised a Michael Bublé tribute act during the dinner, just as something to keep the energy levels up in the room, because after 10 o'clock everybody's been drinking anyway. Yeah, true. And the number of complaints you get afterwards, that's not how it's always been done. They've done something different that didn't fit the norm. How do you deal with those kind of things, especially when there's other people that are signing off an idea? The marketing and events team are always the ones that kind of want to be creative and do something different and kind of make, especially if you're new to a business or new partnership, you want to make your mark. And sometimes people are very reserved in what they're willing to change or what they see as acceptable when it comes to change.
One thing I don't agree with is progress for sake of progress. Putting your stamp on something when actually you need to take a step back and you need to observe and you need to review a bit more, do a bit more research about what has happened.
Because if you take on a marketing agency at times, you know, massive corporates take on a marketing agency, all of a sudden they've had a logo rebrand or something like that just to make the mark of the new agency, haven't they?
Yeah, and, you know, there has been instances where I could be quite heavy-handed, and I am known to be very, I like to say, efficient. So, you know, in a meeting, I like to go in and ask the questions that need to be asked. But I think it's important to empower the teams that you're working with and respect the work that's been done already, because a lot of the time you are working with a history, you know, that has been a lot of work for the teams involved that you are going to continue working with. So it's about working with them, about finding out what they want, and that's not just from the top level. That is when you're working from the ground and you're getting introduced to various teams. I've got a couple of clients at the moment, and I'm just about to be introduced to their teams, and I really want to make sure that they're on board with kind of knowing my knowledge and my expertise in how I can help them, but also making sure that they feel confident enough to go, actually, we want to do it this way. What do you think? And working collaboratively, because I think working with an agency, it's not about coming in and taking over. It's about making sure that the event and the objectives have longevity and that everybody's involved with that success.
So going back to those early days in 2000, do you remember who your first client was on your first project?
I do. So actually, because we were in 2020, it was all about digital events. Okay. And before,
that's a whole different gamble compared to in person, isn't it?
It really is, and that's a whole different topic that I won't get into. But naturally, our first client event was digital, and it was in January 21. So I actually incorporated the business in June 2020. I had my baby son Maximus, which was my first, in September, and I continued more or less working from November from home, and did the first virtual event in January. I was working with a colleague at the time that was working with AMT Events, and we had various companies dialing in internationally, and it was a meet and greet online in a lounge space that we had built out basically to connect them with UK buyers. We got brilliant reviews, and I don't like to sound my own trumpet, but we for a small agency, when everybody was thinking about operationally what they had to do, we were lucky enough to do the research behind digital events to get us off the ground as quickly as possible. So even our early digital events, I'm super proud of the way they were operated and the research and background knowledge that we knew, and we still hold a lot of those relationships with the various lounges and digital companies today that we continue to use when we need to do a hybrid event or a smaller digital event, which often is
there was lots of software platforms that popped up very quickly.
There was,
and then disappeared very quickly as well, some of them.
Yeah, well, it's I still think there's a big need for digital, and actually I think it has changed the industry long term. It's about spending your budget wisely, and sometimes if you'd like to do a really big targeted client event in person, then you've got momentum that can build using smaller digital ones, or some actually might have been live in the past, may not necessarily need to be now.
Do you think that virtual event space will get built on with artificial reality and virtual reality and tools like that?
Yes, well, that I'm not going to pretend to be the expert in AI right now, but I have been doing a lot of research and training already, and it's greatly going to affect every industry. It's already been used, and we are now implementing it in a lot of our processes. We like to be quite transparent about it, but we don't hand things over. We like to complement and make sure that everything is as it should be and the best it can be for what we've already created. So I think when it comes to digital and AI, that's going to go hand in hand as a trend. And I think AI is going to be part of live events as much as, as digital.
We're kind of similar kind of age in that kind of Star Trek world of virtual reality and holograms, and being able to walk through a trade show or see equipment and test drive things and play with inventions that are on the other side of the planet. I think it's probably still 5 years away or 10 years away, but it's probably something that's chasing at our heels as well, of kind of making the world a smaller place.
Yeah, true. I think that augmented reality space, I think lots of it was already being done. It was just under a different title and name, and now it's just that next level up because it's just looking better, and there's so many more people that are now able to use the technology and create the technology. I'm always hit on my phone every day at the moment with ads saying, all the entrepreneurs, 20-somethings are currently creating AI businesses. That blows my mind. But
there's a kitchen company I've been doing some work with where their average kitchen sale is £50,000 to £100,000, and they're now producing the kitchen as a walkthrough. So once you've got your proposal, the price, they'll customise the design, come and sit down in your house, you put on a VR headset, and they'll walk you through the kitchen. And if you say you don't like the royal blue of the kitchen cabinets, they can change that in seconds in front of you.
So many different industries.
It's just phenomenal as to how people can adapt to that and implement it reasonably inexpensively in their business as well. So
I think actually that's a really good point. For businesses like mine, we're 5 years. Startups and younger businesses can really kind of make sure that they're taking advantage of that, and that is going to be a saver on time, efficiency, advice. Obviously it needs to all be backed up, and you need to keep on doing your own research, but it really is an advantage now to have a business where you actually have an assistant essentially that you couldn't afford before. So
for somebody that's not engaged with an event professional before, when should a company bring somebody in to help them make their event successful? And kind of talk me through a little bit of the process, because if we've not used a professional before, whether it's a solicitor, accountant, event professional, sometimes we're a little bit nervous going into that process. So talk us through what happens and how and why we'd use you.
Yeah, sure. So 10 years ago, 15 years ago, not 10, I would probably say event professional wasn't a very common job title. Now you've got not only a whole industry that brings billions of dollars, not dollars, pounds, into the UK every year. There's lots and lots of variations on job titles, and most of the time within businesses that does come under the corporate sector, but then you've got the variation of suppliers, venues, and suppliers even comes in kind of, a magnitude of different areas. So it's really, you've got different people that need different events for different reasons. And the first thing, if we get an inquiry that comes in, I just have a one-to-one chat, understand their industry, understand the business, understand why they've come to me, and then really kind of dive into what they want to achieve out of the event and why they think they need one.
Because events aren't always business-to-business marketing. Sometimes events are used as ways of championing staff or introducing new products, all sorts of different reasons that people are putting on events, aren't there?
Yeah, and you do try to niche as a business, just because there's such a big market out there. We say, we're B2B, business to business. We work with corporates, and we focus on celebrations.
Yeah.
But celebrations is a huge sector. So, we celebrate internal employees by really programming and getting to know all the content for the conference. We celebrate internal employees with award ceremonies that we help build. You then have incentives, like you said, for recruitment and top sales, leadership summits to really bring everyone to get together and reward them with building the knowledge of the business and to go back out there and to make it infectious. Yeah. So there's lots of different reasons. B2B celebrations, anniversaries is what I originally became known for because of my styling, and we do still really empower events with the aesthetic side and the experience side that is often visual, with entertainment and decor and lots of things. So it's really, really great to do that. We don't necessarily do large public events. Yep. But we often work with PAs, and that's through private PAs managing in a business manner, a private family. So it really depends what the brief is. And I would like to say we're super fussy in who we work with, just from a perspective of making sure that we stick to our niche and our target market. But
because you've got to love what you do.
I'm a people person.
You've got to love what
like
you do,
events.
and you've got to love the projects. And you've had some fantastic clients that you've worked with over the years. I was looking through a list of some of the articles that you've written and some of the clients there. Are there any particular projects that you feel like, this is the whole reason I started this? It's that really stand out to you.
There has been some. There was, even in my career history, to be honest, I know I was freelancing at the time, and I very much became manager of the entire project, and it only lasted about 6 weeks. It was quite intense. There was a big team on site, and we transformed the venue from one theme. Well, the venue was beautiful anyway. They had an amazing art collection, but we took the individual's favourite film, split it into two, which ended up being 1920s and Rio, and transformed the venue overnight. So we had the lead up, which was easier because nobody was there. We built the theme throughout, and then all of the guests arrived, had a wonderful day, went to bed, and we worked overnight to transform the venue.
Goodness me, that's a lot of long hours and a lot of preparation and a lot of stress as well.
But I'm still talking about it today, and that's what I love. You've got longer time frames that are required, but then you've got intense projects that at the time are quite stressful, and I do talk about stress a little bit with my family and my friends. I
was going to say it's easy to, in a glitzy industry, it's easy to have a very Instagram lifestyle, isn't it?
Yes, if it and that
but
kind of needs to be managed. But there's a yin and yang to that as well, isn't it? There's I would say, as event professionals, we are very privileged to get the opportunities to view amazing spaces and go to amazing events, industry events, which allow us to have the best knowledge to really know what's best for our clients. However, there is a lot of work that is involved in the events industry, and I'm actually recording a podcast on Thursday about retaining talent and new talent in the industry, because it's quite a hot topic, as always, with lots of industries as well. But for us, it's it is that, right, it's amazing glitzy on Instagram. on wherever that is.
It's not a 9 to 5 by any means.
It's not a 9 to 5, and there is a reason for that, because ultimately a lot of that comes in your own time.
Yeah.
A lot of that comes in the evenings and on the weekends.
We talked about networking events in the evening in London, and the kind of social life that can go with it to help you get ahead in your career.
Yeah.
There's a lot of investment there.
I think you have to be all in. Personally, I think there's definitely a storyline of health and well-being in the industry that we constantly try to strive for, but there is something about being realistic. And I always say I love events and I love my career, so when I have to work hard, I don't recognise the stress, because it's part of me, and I know that I'm doing it for a reason.
It's a bit like having that child that you know that there's a lead up to a certain date, and then after that date you kind of close the chapter on that period of pain in your life. I suppose.
And it's funny actually, when I was styling more full time, I worked with a shoe designer, and he used to be an architect, and I said to him at the time, I was like, you design amazing shoes, but why, after all that training to be an architect, have you decided to become a shoe designer? And he just said, well, it's very much the same values and processes about structure, and then looking at manufacture and how you build something to last, but
I suppose there's
the timeline is much shorter. And he was like, I really enjoy seeing the outcome.
I suppose engineering a stiletto heels is as important as engineering a bridge support.
Yeah, they were amazing. They were made of metal, but
so
it was
I wanted
amazing.
to kind of dig into a little bit of a truth bomb, because I looked through at your career, and with my background in engineering, there's something I notice is very similar between both of us. And when I get a lot of CVs come across my desk in my past business, you'd see a lot of people that had short-term jobs. And when you're young at employing, you think they've got no longevity or staying power. But when you understand different parts of your industry more and more, it's short-term projects. So for anybody that's coming into the industry, they can feel, I've landed a job. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes it's a 6-month project, a 9-month project, a 12-month project, and then it's on to, either hunting for a new role again, or, you're out there for the next project. That freelancing world, and I'm trying to remember what the new expression is for it at the moment. That kind of world of freelancing is quite a harsh place to be.
And I think probably that is one reason why I've built up quite a lot of resilience. I don't often recognise it. Some people have said to me in the industry, well, you're doing really well, and I've been watching what you're doing, and this is fantastic. I'm always striving for that higher bar, so I don't recognise what's going on right now or what I've necessarily achieved, which is why I'm doing this, I suppose. But growing up through my 20s, I really struggled with that, because for me it was about belonging. And
9 months you just get to be part of the team. You learn the quirky people, the people to avoid in the workplace, the people you love to be around. Your friendships are forming. A bit like your first year of marriage, isn't it? Life's good. Then all of a sudden the project comes to an end and things change.
It was I was really striving for a full-time position, but you also have to look back and reflect, what did I really want at that time? When I got the opportunity to go corporate, I got offered that full-time position after receiving, a great opportunity contract, and they wanted me to stay. But my post my degree, I wanted to go travelling, and I would never change that. I went for 9 months. I saw the world in the way I wanted to, and lots happened. I'm writing a book about that. It's like back-burning project, as
just
we all have.
To spin,
it's been a long time coming. But, I had an amazing time, never changed that. But when I came back, I was essentially behind a year to other graduates. And then we had the big crash as well around when I was graduating. So there were lots of factors. And because I'd done that 3-month stint as a corporate contractor, I then had recruiters sending me roles saying, you'd be perfect for this. And, I got quite quickly registered with 2 or 3 that I'd interviewed with. They liked me. They were happy to put me forward. And so whilst I'm sending in an application for a full-time position where there's going to be 150 or 200 applicants, I was then being kind of championed by a recruiter putting me forward for a contracting role, and that's very much how I got all of my corporate experience. But I was craving for that full-time position, and I think I did get to my third corporate contract role where I just felt, actually, from the fashion styling side that I was doing before, where I was juggling that and then doing all of the production shows, I need to kind of own some creativity again. So that's where I decided to go for an agency role. And again, because I had a contracting background, I fell into contracting, and it was, it was event manager here, event coordinator there, and then it was senior event manager. So, out of my whole journey, I would say it's done me extremely well, because I learned a lot. I learned what to do and what not to do from various agencies very quickly. I could recognise that myself.
And you've learned that kind of resilience of how to deal with people quickly, build a rapport quickly, understand, the lie of the land when you get put into a new role, because actually you've got to adapt quickly before you move on to another role.
I did adapt, but I have to say I am somebody that is quite emotionally charged, in that I connect with people, I connect with my work. So I can't say that I got used to going into different environments and being able to immediately work them out. It was very like, I've got to, I'm the newbie again, I've got to do this. But it's only probably 10 years later that I've really recognised what I've taken from that and how I built myself professionally, which I'm really grateful for now. But not definitely a hard time craving for that.
So somebody new in the industry. So someone new in the industry, what piece of advice would you give them?
It's really, really hard when you have experienced people that, again, also making judgments, because at the time it did look like I'd been on lots of different jobs when it was contracting. So trust your gut and really try and visualise and show things for the reality that they are. I didn't need to say, I've not found a permanent position. It was actually, I've been working with amazing brands and amazing agencies, and I've had this opportunity, and it's given me a really wide variation on experience. So I use that to my advantage in the end. But I did a life coaching session with a client a few years ago, and she was going for a job role in a very different industry than what she was working at the time. She was she'd been working in marine biology, and she wanted to go and work for this particular company. And I said, well, what's an employer looking for at the end of the day? They want to see that you're a good fit with the people, that you've got a passion for what you do, and that you've got some experience that will relate from whatever industry you were in. Because actually, at the end of the day, you can teach whatever skills need to be taught as long as the attitude of the person is right. True.
And I think sometimes people go into job interviews without thinking about what the person on the other side of the desk is going to be looking for. And that's not necessarily, 4 pages of a CV that's perfect. It's about the attitude and the chemistry and the person that's sat beside them.
It's really difficult, though, when you're looking for that job. I get it. You lose perspective. You've done, 100 job applications in a week. I remember it. I was there. I did it. There was a period of time where I was unemployed and I just couldn't get my next contract role, and I was like, what is going on?
What's wrong? What's wrong with me?
You start to take it personally, and you lose that perspective. So just, I suppose, really reach out to people that you've already worked with. Make sure you've got those testimonials on your profile, and if you can train in an additional skill that gives you that competitive edge, then that is helpful. But I've certainly interviewed people that have come from different industries. Before AMT Events, when I was made redundant, it was literally the week I created a community online, and through that I met lots of people in the events industry that had been made redundant. And it was only about 2 years later, actually, a PA came in, and we did have some PAs, but she really wanted to progress with events, and her company wasn't giving her the opportunity, and she tried multiple times. So she ended up coming on board and working on digital events. And
so that LinkedIn community's got 2,500 odd members to it now.
Yes,
and that mentee and mentor relationship, something you really champion within that group, isn't it?
Yes.
kind of helping it. There's a saying that I quite often use about, a rising tide lifts all ships, and so to improve the community, it's something that you've all got to do together.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that I meant to create. I was kind of desperate at the time, to be honest. I was just thinking there has to be somebody else out there like me, and there were lots in different scenarios, in more difficult scenarios, in maybe just different scenarios, but everybody really connected, and it's definitely evolved over time. It's still a very active events community, but it was used for a different purpose then, so it's continuing, and the main kind of grounding of that is to help each other, and the whole point of the community is to be kind, to not judge, to advise and help each other get on through personal and business, because it's nice to do business with kind people and that make life easier.
A friend of mine's definition of business is making money but having fun with people you like spending time with along the way, and that's really what a lot of us kind of started our businesses for, isn't it? To be able to choose the things that we were doing. You've been quite open about being a mum and a founder of a business and a community and bits like that. How do you juggle the 24/7 lifestyle of events and a young family as well?
Yes, so I was pregnant when I started. I then had Aurora, my second, in 22, and ironically, 5 years on, I've now also got
a new celebration. So 2 celebrations in the same year.
The final.
We'll be back here for 10 years.
Five years on, 5 months pregnant. It's been a journey. I'm not the first mum, I'm not the last that started a business. It's easy to say at the beginning, and I think maybe also because of the time with COVID, because it was quieter. There were things that didn't help, but there were things that certainly did help me start my business when it was quieter. And I think learning through the years, there's definitely a storyline of you can have it all. It's about balance, and usually that does come with some form of compromise somewhere along the way. Otherwise you end up burning out. You do. And I am definitely a voice for saying, do you know what, cut that guilty niggle in your head out, and that voice, because that is wasted energy. But it comes to me and I just have to say, nope, I'm doing this for a reason. It makes me really proud when Aurora comes into the office and she sits and starts tapping away at the keyboard as if she's working, and she just turns around and goes, "Mum, I'm working." And
there's a little YouTube video
that little working
going around
ethic,
with my daughter sat at the other side of the table a few weeks ago, and she's absolutely loves it. And as you say, but there's so many more job opportunities for them now than there were 20, 30 years ago. So whole new careers that had never been there. So
and I actually really do want, I think I'm a bit different to other business owners, that this is what I've been told. I want to build a business that I'm proud of, that has longevity, that I can pass to my children if they want to go into events. If they don't, that's fine, but a lot of business owners want to sell their business at some point. I don't want to do that. It's something that I want to be able to give as an opportunity to my children, because I did struggle in my 20s. It was difficult to get a foot in the door, to get into a role that was, had that opportunity of progress. So I'm building this for many different reasons, but my heart and soul is in AMT Events. Lots of people say it is what used to be the third baby, and it's now going to be the fourth.
It's quite funny from that point of view, because as you say, your children and my family are the same. You look at things and say, well, if you want to be an accountant, you can do bookkeeping and accounts. If you want to do photography and videography, there's a role for that within your business. There's a role for a marketing person, social media, all sorts of different roles. So whatever you want to do,
true.
There's still the opportunity to come to work with mum and have a great time and do some really fun things. Or you can kind of explore the outside world as well.
Yeah, of course. And I would always give them that choice as well, I think you need to have that kind of mindset of making sure that ultimately I'll support them whatever they want to do. So,
So we talked about the kind of glitz and glamour of the Instagram lifestyle and all the events and all the backstage images and things like that we see on social. But how important is social media and marketing for your business? Is it a business that's grown through word of mouth and hunting people down that you want to do business with, or is it something that you just attract the people that you want to be doing business?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a mixture, to be honest. I think the social media and marketing side of things came quite naturally to me, but I had a lot more time for it earlier on. I have less time these days, and I do what I can. We're at a difficult growth stage, I would say, where we're doing some sourcing, but it has to be the right fit, because I've equally, learnt some lessons in the last couple of years where if it's not the right fit, then it can drain resource and time, and that has an impact long term. So marketing and social, I mean, I've always been quite active in the events industry. I work with some organisations doing kind of empowerment of women in the events industry, the different things that we have to deal with being a mother, and then also working with a very demanding industry where often we might be away, and looking at those different topics. But yeah, ultimately, it's just something that's come quite natural, and my clients, I would say, have come through most of the time referrals. I've either worked with them before, and I'm talking like 5, maybe 10 years ago, but then just stayed in touch with them on LinkedIn and had a good relationship to the point where they're now 3 roles down the line, and
still remember you.
And which is really nice. And they've also, I think, I see that more so in the last year or so, because they've seen the journey of AMT Events as well and what we've been doing. I've had some recommendations from other people in the events industry
that's always nice when someone says, "Oh, this person's a better fit for you. Go and work with them."
Yeah, exactly. And some of it has been suppliers, and some of it has been venues as well, which is really nice, because you've got that installed confidence from other people in the industry, and that's important and very respected by myself, because they're putting their name out there for you as well. And that actually is very much where most of the business. I have exhibited. I was at the PA show. I went to International Confex.
And your PR is quite effective, isn't it? You've had the opportunity to speak a number of times within the industry and different events, and so you're quite a visible person as far as.
That's very kind.
Well, a lot of business owners hate to be the face of their business, and there's an awful lot of people that hide behind, a very bland website that is kind of characterless. And the events industry and marketing as a whole is very kind of dependent on us as the business owner, putting ourselves out there and being seen and speaking and generating a level of credibility to us as a personal brand, rather than just 4 letters on a business card.
I suppose I just went all in. Often, I mean, maybe I'm getting a little bit older now, where I feel like a little bit reserved on some things, and I do look back and go, you're pretty brave to do that.
What do you think? Go on and give us an example of something brave you think you've done.
And then I think, God, you're getting old when you say that to yourself. But, I think I've just thrown myself into it. And if I feel like I have the expertise to talk on a topic, I will. And I've always seen that as one and part of the role of being an event agency, because if you're not able to kind of present that, then where's the knowledge coming from? It's good to be involved with events at different levels, with different people, and really showing that you're part of the events industry as well as behind the scenes. And I always have been, to be honest.
Can you think of an event where it's all gone wrong?
I'm not allowed to talk about them.
Something critical. You don't have to name the event.
No, to be honest with you, I'm quite lucky in that nothing major has happened.
It's normally technical people, isn't it, to blame for everything? Engineers and...
There's been things that... so kind of going back here. I did turn up quite young once in my early junior days, and my manager was drunk on site. So because of the kind of venue offering, especially with making sure that everything was right, but whether she had just had a bad day or whatever that was, empty stomach because she was so busy, I did have to put her in a taxi before everyone arrived.
I won't name the
that
company,
was quite funny.
but I've been at a corporate event where the finance director of a very, very large media company had an astonishing amount to drink through the evening. So much so that he had a little bit of an accident and had to be escorted to a taxi. There are some funny occasions in events that you kind of character building, how you deal with them.
For them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most of them. The thing about events is, and I truly believe this, no matter how trained you are, there is always going to be something on site. And you can be prepared for everything, but there's always that one thing that happens that you're not quite prepared for. So, going into the boring health and safety side of it, which, is essential, doing the RAMs really helps. It's one
Taking
of those...
that time to just think about what's going to happen,
and how you can prevent it, and if it did happen, what would be the protocol. That is really important. Even for my preschool, like I'm on the committee, I'm doing their school trip, and I'm making sure we've got all of that covered.
That'd be the best organised school trip in the history of the
well,
primary
I think
school.
that's what they're hoping, but when it comes to personal things, it's trying to fit it in amongst all the actual professional items you have to get done. But it will be a great trip.
So as a professional celebration organiser, we're coming to the end of our conversation, but we're celebrating 5 years in business. That's a massive celebration. As we said at the start, a lot of businesses never make it to 5 years. You've grown through 5 years of hell, if we're honest, about the effects that the country's had, that you had no control of. And if you go back to the kind of business school, marketing school, we talk about the kind of effects that happen outside of our control, economic effects. Budgets are tighter at the moment. We've had political effects for the last few years, a war in Ukraine, you've COVID, all these other things that actually we kind of go over our head most of the time because actually they're not things we can control. But you've weathered a lot of storms there, so there's a lot to be celebrated.
Oh, thank you very much.
What does the next 5 years look like? Are we going to celebrate big style this year? Is there ways that you're going to put yourself out and see more clients and celebrate the 5 years?
AMT Turns 5 is our campaign of the month, and we do have quite a few things coming out, hopefully your podcast. And a couple of editorials. We're also reflecting back on the moments and what we have done, client testimonials. We've reached out to our existing clients. We're going to be putting out some new testimonials because it is still growing as a business. We haven't achieved everything. I don't want to be a huge business, but I certainly want to be a bigger business.
And you want to be the choice in what you want to go and do. So if you want to celebrate something, come to us.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to be known in the industry as the creative boutique B2B agency that creates celebrations for...
Have you got a dream client that is there that you just would love for the phone to ring tomorrow morning?
If I'm just going to pick it out of the cloud, and I have connected with everybody, but Disney would be my dream because I love Disney.
Fantastic.
But I did go this year with my kids. All my friends know I'm Disney mad. But the creativity that is involved with their characters, their films, that would be amazing for me. Warner Bros, amazing. Lots of different activations. It's funny being 5 years because you are right. It's been quite turbulent, and the usual phase, I would say, as a startup that everybody thinks about is 3 years, but it wasn't a normal 5 years. So for me, I kind of think actually we're just coming out of startup phase because we had a period of time where there were no events, and then even when we started to get going on digital events, end of 21, two clients cancelled because of the restrictions, and the winter came. It's like winter is coming. And we were like a bit like yo-yo, and that wasn't a normal starting platform. So but we've been really proud. We've won awards along the way. I've been trying to recognise what we've done and how we've grown, and also just try and set a tone for, you know, how things should be done. Working with freelancers, you know, I think it's really important to make them feel accepted within the workplace.
Yep.
They are, to me, super important. Growing a business, because it's our whole business model enables us to expand and retract, but I feel through the community and my network, let's say PR and marketing, I know the right people for the right roles.
Yep.
So it's we're going to continue growing like this. We're going to have more employees. You know, I think I've just kind of revised my goals for the next 5 years. I want to be able to get to 5 internal employees comfortably working on the live events. That's where I would kind of, you know, really like to be. We've got some targets for the end of the year with some new fashion clients and some international events for next year. And we've also launched our amazing St. Lucia incentive program and our leadership summit. So whether it's a singular event or a part of a series, we've done a lot of research behind that, from going to the islands, connecting with the islanders, and it's all about actually giving back to the island rather than going somewhere and taking away. So super excited to get that off the ground, and that's been kind of launched in the last month and doing well with interest. So
fantastic. So if we want to find out some more about you and AMT Events, where will we find you online?
So I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So Anna Marie Trzebinski, hyphen AMT Events, I've got at the end. Electric yellow jacket, should have worn it today. But you can reach out to me on email as well, Anna-Marie at amteventsglobal.com, and I'll go and have a look at our website just to check out what we've done. I had a phone call today,
Google for
actually.
AMT Events.
Yeah, I had a phone call from a venue today, and she said that she'd been on the website, and that was really nice to hear. And she said, I couldn't get off the website because you've got lots of exciting things on there. I was actually enjoying looking through it. So that's really nice to hear. And yeah.
I think the biggest learning for me just of those last few minutes is whether you're celebrating 5 years, 15 years or 50 years, it's all, as a small business, it's all about going out and creating the publicity about your business. Tell the stories and the things that you've enjoyed, the things that have not gone so well, and, you know, just go out there and tell our stories to the rest of the industry and to our potential customers, and find a reason to talk to people. Because actually it's all those little connections that you made over the years that have kind of led to your success in the long run, by just keeping in contact with people.
And it is easy to forget that, you know, you have to continually be brave, really. Come out of your comfort zone and think about what are we doing new, and, you know, what have we learnt from. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to really give myself the energy and the oomph to continue doing that.
So congratulations on 5 years, and congratulations on the baby as well.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you again in a few months'
Thank you
time,
for
and there'll be a
inviting
new
me.
addition
It's
to the
been
family.
Really enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.